Take Elizabeth Bennet. Now she's the opposite. Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a video that I have seen all over BookTube, and I think for very good reason, and I have loved watching all of them. And that is book recommendations that you would consider comfort reads. We are in some tough times now, the world over. Things are scary and uncertain, and I think it's only natural that we turn to books that we find comforting and warm and just make you feel good. And so this is a list of books that I think would be great comfort reads. I'm also going to be doing another video in which I discuss books that I think are fun reads, because I do personally think of those as different, so keep a lookout for that video. But if you're looking for some recommendations of some books that I just think will kind of make you feel like you've received a warm hug, then go ahead and keep on watching. I am going to go ahead and just give the disclaimer right now that if you're not into reading classic books / modern classics, maybe my comfort read recommendations are not for you. For whatever reason, I tend to gravitate towards those two genres of books because in my experience, classics and modern classics tend to be a little bit more quiet in the plot. They're not as page turning as, say, a lot of books can be, and I personally find that very comforting when I'm looking for something to just slow me down and give me a chance to take a breath and take a pause. So there's a lot of these books in these recommendations, so just wanted to give you fair warning. But we will start with our first classic, which is without a doubt a classic, and that is Jane Austen's Persuasion. I absolutely adored this book when I read it. I think it's one of her shorter novels. And in this story, we are following Anne Elliot, and she's the daughter of Sir Walter Elliot, and she's just a very quiet, introspective character. I think if I want to sum her up really, really well in a way that most people would understand, take Elizabeth Bennet. Now she's the opposite. Anne Elliot is, like I said, she's introspective and she's quiet, and she's not going to force her opinion or herself into any situation to the detriment of another person. And this is just her story about her falling in love and the people she meets and the experiences that she has and how she handles all of these situations. I just think for that reason, for her steadfastness and just steadiness, let me be redundant there for a second, apologies. I just think that makes this a great comfort read. If you haven't read this one, I highly recommend it. I think it's underrated as far as Austen's works go. So if you haven't read it, maybe now's the time. If you thought I was going to make this video and not mention this book, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, other than maybe you're newer to my channel because it has been a little while since I've talked about this book. But this is most likely, if you're gonna make me pick, my favorite book of all time. Period. The end. There is no more. And that book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I adore this book. I have only personally read it once, but I have been considering rereading it sooner rather than later for a whole variety of reasons, but also because this book was just this wonderful, warm, thoughtful, heartfelt story that is just really slow moving. This is completely character based. There is no plot. I need to warn you, there's no plot. If you need that in a story, probably not the one for you. But I love this book. And Francie is a character that I just found that I just wanted to be in her presence. And Smith's writing is some of the best. And I say that without any qualms. Her writing just spoke to my soul, for the lack of a better term. And if you haven't read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, maybe now's the time. It is a bigger book, but it just gives you some time to, like I said, slow down, enjoy the beautiful prose, and just settle into this really, really incredible story where not a whole lot happens, but you love every second of it. And since we were just talking about Betty Smith, I have another one of her books that I'm going to recommend as well. Can you tell I really like her writing? And that is Joy in the Morning. This is the story of a newly married couple in 1927. They live in Brooklyn, New York, and they fall in love, and this is about their first year of marriage, about the trials and the tribulations and the different experiences that they have and their struggles, and it's just so human. This story is just so down to earth, and I adore it for that. This is a wonderful study of a marriage, of a really, really young marriage, and again, I can't recommend it enough. I know that's my phrase, but if you have read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, maybe try this one because it's also fantastic. In my opinion, not as good, but still a beautiful, beautiful story that just makes you feel good. One nonfiction book made my list, and this is arguably one of my favorite nonfiction books ever, and it's comforting, and that's because it talks about books. That's another theme you'll find in this video, books that talk about other books. But that is Ex Libris, Confessions of a Common Reader by Anne Fadiman. And this is an essay collection that just dives deep into what it means to be a reader. Yes, Fadiman is a writer. Her parents were also writers, but most importantly, they all identify as readers. And this is about rereading stories that you've loved. This is about how you physically treat your books. This is how you read your books. This is how you select what books go on your shelves and stay on your shelves. And there's also a whole chapter of her and her husband trying to figure out what books to keep and not to keep as they combine their two libraries in a New York apartment that was rather small. So this book just makes you feel good. If you are one of those readers who enjoys reading about readers and their experiences with the written word, definitely give this one a go. It's a really short one, and it's an essay collection, so you can hop in and out of it. It's great. It's so great, and I don't hear a whole lot of people talk about it, but I adore it. I adore it so much. Another book about books, and it's not the last one, is one that is a bit more commonly read, I think, by a lot of people. I haven't seen a whole lot of people talk about it on BookTube, but I do think it's a great read for our current times. And that book is The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George, and it is translated from the German by Simon Parr. And this is the story, I can't remember the man's name, about Perdue, and he is a literary apothecary. So he has a bookstore that is on a boat on the Seine, in which people come to his bookstore and they tell him their problems, and he prescribes them a book. And I absolutely love that concept. And the whole center plot of this story is that Perdue, years before, had a lover that left him behind and left him only with a letter, and he has still not opened it. And finally, one day he opens it, and he lifts anchor and goes off to find her. And this story, it's just, again, it's really heartfelt, and it's about growth and your personal journey, and there's a wonderful cast of characters that are super quirky. I don't think it's the best book that's ever written, and I have not reread it myself, but I think if you've never read it before, it would be a great book for right now. I know she has lots of other books that are now backlisted and newer than this one, but it was just, the whole concept of a literary apothecary was something I could totally get on board with. I really, really liked it. Now, I will say this book, I do believe, made me cry. Like, it made me emotional. So it's not all comforting, but like comforting cry in a good way. Does that make sense? Please tell me I'm not the only one. But anyways, maybe you've written this one off before because it was so popular, but I think it's a good book. Like I said, it's got very interesting, fun ideas and fun characters, which sound pretty good right about now. Now for a children's classic that I read all the time when I was a kid, and I think I would turn to it now as an adult. And it's a very well-loved story. I'm not really going to describe the plot to you because I'm sure most of you know, but that is The Secret Garden by, I struggle so much to say her name, Frances Hodgson Burnett. I can't say her name, I don't know why. But this is, of course, the story of Mary, who loses her parents and is sent to live with her uncle in the moors of England, and about what happens while she's there and what happens when she finds this secret garden and tries to befriend her uncle's son / her cousin and a little boy that she meets along the way. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful, beautiful, let me say beautiful again, story. I think that this is one of those books that if you haven't read it, even if you're an adult, you'll still really love it. You'll still turn to it. I've had this book for a long time. If this doesn't say anything, a book plate that I put in there and wrote my name in when I was younger. And it's heartwarming. We're also coming into spring here for some of us in the world, and it's a very appropriate read, and it's very atmospheric, and you just kind of get transported to this place. And it's wonderful, and it's beautiful. There, that word is again. Beautiful. Now for another book about books that is also a very popular book among just like the average American, I guess you would say. It's a book a lot of people would recognize. It's a movie now as well. And that is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I was very skeptical of this book when I first picked it up. I didn't have very high hopes. I expected it to be overhyped, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think the aspect of this love of reading and writing and learning that is in this story just lends itself really well to make you as the reader feel really good. And this book is not without its hardships or sorrows. I mean, it's a story about World War II or post-World War II, so there's loss involved. But the characters and the warmth that balances that out is done really, really well. It's a very sweet story, and if you like it enough, you can go and watch the movie, which isn't bad. It's not nearly as good as the book, but I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't think anyone's surprised, but I definitely recommend it if you've kind of just been like, no, I don't want to read it. Everybody really likes it. That makes me kind of nervous. It might surprise you. It certainly surprised me. The last book I have to share with you is a book that has already been mentioned on one of these lists by Juan at Just Juan Reader. I will link his video and channel down below for you guys so you can go check it out. But when I saw him mention this book, I was like, yes, of course. Why is not everyone reading this book right now? This is not a book I've read more than once, but absolutely one day I will read it again. And maybe, like I said, I'll turn to it here very shortly. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that Juan talked about this book, but I just wanted to further the likelihood that someone might pick it up. And that is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I adore this book. This was one of my favorite books of 2018, without a doubt, one of my favorite books ever. It's definitely in the top 10. This is the story of Cassandra Mortmain, who lives in this very eccentric, who lives with her very eccentric stepmother and very odd family. Her dad is a very well-lauded author that hasn't published anything in like years and years and years. They live in this dilapidated estate manor castle in the middle of England, and it's just wonderful. These are her diary entries is what this book is. She has a sister and a brother, and you just kind of go along for the ride and you get to be inside of her head, and the writing is fantastic. It's joyful, but also you just feel like her teenage angst and stress and loneliness, and she's just so viscerally real in the best possible way because she just seems so tangible. I've never related more to a character than I related to Cassandra Mortmain. And for me, that's a big deal. Like, I haven't had that happen over and over and over again to be so fully connected with a character. So, like I said, Juan mentioned this book. I needed to do the same because it's just so incredibly good. It's a modern classic that everyone should be reading. I stand by that without a doubt. So maybe you should go check this one out. Just do me a favor, go read it, and then come back and tell me how much you loved it. And then everyone will be happy. All right, guys, there you have it. There are some books that I would recommend to you if you are looking for something to just be comforting, to make you feel good and safe, and all those really wonderful words that the world doesn't feel like right now. So maybe books can help us do that a little bit. That being said, I hope everyone is hanging in there and doing their best and self-isolating as much as possible. Erin and I are doing our part in that sense, and we'll continue to do so. But if you guys read any of these books and really liked them or didn't, let me know down in the comments, or if you want to read any of them now, do the same. And if you guys like this video, please like it. And if you loved it, please subscribe, and we will see you in my next video. Happy reading!